Not content to be constrained to merely one planet, the Orokin soon took it upon themselves to expand outward throughout the entirety of the Origin system, turning harsh, uninhabitable worlds into new seats for their ever-expanding empire. Though centuries have left the original purpose and intent behind these constructs obscured, the Corpus and their expansion on Venus has revealed enough clues to form a rough image of what the monoliths were used for in ages past. As many of the NPCs in Fortuna speculate, it is likely that Venus once served as a testing bed for new strains of life, advanced terraforming techniques, and also as a large-scale menagerie of sorts for the Orokin elites to peruse. The Orokin would hide the genetic information they wished to seed the planet with in the very coolant itself, serving as a primordial sludge for both life and terraforming purposes, cooling the firestorms of Venus into more manageable and survivable climates. The Orokin towers, known as weeping posts, would absorb the seeded coolant, process it, and then redistribute it within their designated zone, as all the towers are facing inwards, forming a circle, creating miniature vivariums that the Orokin would then occupy more freely. The vivariums would be maintained not just by the weeping posts and their coolant, but also by a slew of Orokin custodial drones that ensured the carefully tended stability of the hospitable regions did not spiral out of control. These drones would ensure the coolant was kept stable and healthy, while also reconstituting the coolant and discarded biomatter into Orokin biomass to repair the living towers. The initial process for distributing the coolant, however, was far less precise and refined. As the surface of Venus had not yet been cooled enough to allow for the weeping posts to operate fully, the initial coolant process was instead distributed via orbital bombardment. Using a sort of gravitational core that would then also sprout into a coiling mass of golden roots, the Orokin would leave these devices in orbit, accumulating rock matter as well as drawing coolant inwards, seeded by Orokin ships, before freezing into a massive orbiting satellite. Then, either by sheer mass or by some outward force, the asteroids would be crashed into the surface of Venus, rapidly distributing the coolant across the target area while also kickstarting the weeping post process and also causing a rapid drop in temperature that, while brief, would allow the weeping posts to stabilize the temperature more easily. The proximity of the crash sites to the weeping posts is clearly indicative of the Orokin's goal to send the drops of coolant close to the towers for them to absorb, but also might lend credence to another, albeit more far-fetched, theory. It is clear that, much like the Unum and most other Orokin constructs, the weeping posts are formed of an organic material that grows and evolves, healing, scarring, and changing as needed. As the Orokin were masters of all things living and non, they were also able to guide seemingly inorganic substances with a more organic purpose. As the Unum has living gold substrata within her, the weeping posts have sprawling roots of gold. While the major craters were likely the sources of coolant drops, as evidenced by the flowing pits below, the seeds that are the central orb may also have been used to grow weeping posts. As can clearly be seen, the towers possess massive weaves of tangled golden roots beneath them, keeping them steady in the face of Venus's harsh winds. Essentially, serving as Orokin trees of life, bleeding their sap into the Vallis floor. As some of the crater roots seem to have been melted in the entry from the orbit, it is possible that these seeds were killed before they could grow into full weeping posts. These roots bear striking similarity to the seeds in the crater sites, and while they could very well be similar growth technology used for different purposes, it still raises ideas about the Orokin's ability to manipulate inorganic material as life. But the weeping posts also serve as a testament to the Orokin's inability to control their own creations. It would seem that in the time left dormant in the wake of the Empire's collapse, the towers themselves have given birth to subspecies of living metal. Golden flowers that generate wind and immense fungi latticed with golden fascia, perhaps originally intended to serve as a part of the terraforming process, but just as possible to have been born from the unchecked mutations of Orokin technology left dormant. In this dormancy, eventually the towers would die in a sense. No longer being maintained and upkept by the Orokin, they would soon fall and the Vallis would return to its previous uninhabitable state. However, the genetic information of generations of rapid evolution were stored, kept safe beneath the Vallis, an ark that waited in silence for centuries. An ark that would be disturbed by the Corpus and their fervent pursuit of Orokin reliquary. Spearheaded by none other than Nef Anyo, the attempt to revitalize the Vallis was seen as a long shot, an insane ploy that no other businessman would risk capital on. Yet Neff took that risk, perhaps hoping to gain a foothold where no others dared tread and monopolize the rarities that awaited within. Because of its isolated location, massive financial sink, and overall dangerous nature, many of the Corpus investors would secretly hope for Neff Anyo to fail, eager to see the blowhard prophet fall victim to his own hubris. Thus, while Neff may still be a devout member of the Corpus Order, he and his operations on Venus are very much alone. Fortunately for Neff, the Corpus are not known to get their hands dirty. Thus, he invested in a large number of Solaris workers to repair the towers of old, sending them to the firestorms of Venus while he watches from his capital ship in orbit high above. Despite the immense odds against them, the Solaris managed to manipulate the inscrutable weeping posts and revitalize them, bringing stability and then, miraculously, life back to the Vallis. The Orokin data stored within the coolant was still intact, bringing forth a resurgence of life once thought extinct. The climate was further stabilized by the creation of a massive orbiting reflector array and space station, regulating the Vallis temperature by redirecting sunlight as needed. The reflector array also serves as a way to protect the Vallis' namesake, the Orb Mothers. As the reflector is crucial in keeping the Vallis stable, destroying it is impossible for would-be resistance members on the surface hoping to disrupt the Orb Mother's adaptive shielding, as doing so would result in their own agonizing demise. But while they succeeded in calming the Vallis, the balance the ramshackle adjustments to the weeping posts brings is tenuous at best, and Corpus greed threatens to tip the scales. Already, prior attempts at speeding up the process led to the destruction of one weeping post, and as seen in the Vox Solaris quest, another overloaded post and subsequent destruction would make the fragile balance keeping the Vallis cool unsustainable, returning the area to the fires from whence it came. But while that covers the main story of the Vallis, there are still numerous points of interest scattered throughout that are worth noting. The first is the spaceport's location. As you can tell, it is in a location next to two fallen Orokin defense grid nodes, having fallen from orbit in centuries past, or by being destroyed by the Corpus to facilitate the spaceport. Without the nodes present, it would allow Corpus to travel freely through the gap in the grid, unobstructed by Orokin tech of old. Another point of interest is the Corpus's harvesting of the Orokin living metal, carving massive chunks of the asteroid's roots and mass-producing the Venflowers, quite literally growing gold. But the Corpus do not stop there with their exploitation of the Vallis' resources. They created the Enrichment Labs, which in turn houses the feed and research division of Neff's Vallis recovery efforts. This division is dedicated to understanding the various flora, fauna, and Orokin technology on the Vallis. In turn, they hope to mass-produce and harvest the living creatures for profit, and replace any valuable Orokin custodial drones with cheaper, easily built Corpus incarnations. In their harvesting of the Vallis, they also discovered long-lost remnants of the old war, sentient bones buried beneath the Vallis, yet still containing secrets the Corpus desire. The Corpus have begun to experiment with how to repurpose sentient tech, channeling energy through their bones akin to how operators use amps. They also would use the cores of sentience to imbue devices with deadly energy attacks and Warframe disabling projections. These weapons and tools were designed with the sole purpose of gaining a leg up on the Tenno and their Warframes, as seen in one of the testing chambers where the weapons are tested on Orokin metals. The Corpus experimentation with sentience also led to the creation of the most imposing addition to the Corpus arsenal, the Orb Mothers. Massive Corpus proxies with hybrid sentient AI, resulting in them possessing an intelligence and manner of speech similar to the sentience encountered in the past. However, these hybrids seem to be disconnected from their original hive. As with the case of the Prophet Taker, she seems to possess a childlike intellect, viewing everything through an almost playful lens. As an aside, a very far-reaching theory, yet one that offers a connection that is difficult to shake, is the Prophet Taker's speech as she dies. Her "good night, sweetheart" line is incongruous with her prior rhyming and childish speech patterns, and is eerily similar to the somatic disruption message left by Margulis within the transference system. We have seen prior that the Corpus are capable of hybridizing Warframe technology, as is the case with Zanuka, so it is not impossible that they would further blend the technologies of old and imbue a hybrid with sentient, Corpus, and Warframe protocols. Again, a tangential relation at best, but still an interesting idea. Another interesting theory is the potential usage of the Orb Mothers as new terraforming devices. Already the ties between the sentient terraforming abilities and the Corpus technology exist, and there is a further striking resemblance to the arms of the Orb Mothers and the dilapidated weeping posts. The Exploiter Orb seems capable of emitting a massive controlled field of rapid cooling, creating blizzard-like conditions on a whim. It is possible that the Corpus, using the namesake of the Orb Vallis, have experimented with new, automated defense and utility drones in the form of the Orb Mothers, creating them to be self-sufficient mobile weeping posts. Much like the prior theory, it is far-reaching, but not too outrageous. Though the Corpus have succeeded in carving out their own place on the Vallis, there are still remnants of the Orokin that they have not yet deciphered. One is the so-called Pearl that is under Corpus study. The Pearl is in fact one of the aforementioned asteroid seeds, though unactivated or trimmed down by the Corpus. It demonstrates that the Pearl itself, or something within it, generates its own gravitational field and may also have a far more direct tie to the flow of coolant itself. It is unclear if the Corpus are attempting to reverse engineer the Pearl, or if they are merely hoping to use it as another source of harvest in the name of profit. The final point of interest lies below the Vallis itself in the form of a long Orokin railway system. Marked by crumbled spinning rings, it was likely an underground Orokin mag rail, accelerating materials beneath the surface at a rapid rate, away from the significantly harsher conditions of the surface. The railway also seems to connect somewhat near to the Orokin dig site, which is currently locked tight. Given the Orokin dig site's more prominent design, it is possible that it was once a station on the railway, either for loading and unloading materials, or for individuals to embark upon the railway once the Vallis had been stabilized. However, given the lines by the Fortuna NPCs hinting to something beneath the surface of the Vallis, it is likely that it led to something far greater. With the Orokin coolant flowing downwards and into the core of the Vallis and surrounding areas, it is possible that a sort of massive breeding pool of Orokin coolant has formed, and the Orokin either use this pool as a growth site in and of itself, or as a method to supply smaller amounts of coolant back to the weeping posts above. But, as with many things in the Warframe universe, these are mostly uncertain, and until the time comes when the secrets of the Vallis are fully exposed by the Corpus cult, this is what we know.